Hey guys, Light Kerosene back here with another TFT Basics. Today we are going to do a champion spotlight for the Sniper Celestial Ashe. So Ashe is a great character who benefits from having two fantastic origins. Sniper increases damage based on the distance between her and her target. If you have two snipers, which is pretty easy to get with, say, a Caitlyn or a Jhin. And Celestial gives you 15% lifesteal or spell damage and lifesteal, then 30% and 60%. So a lot of times you're going to go into a 4 Celestial build, and Ashe is a great cornerstone for that build. Typically, that build entails Xin Zhao, Ashe, Rakan, and insert your favorite Celestial. Um, my choice most often is Kassadin because he's a mana reaver. So let's get started. Ashe fires an arrow towards the furthest enemy, colliding with the first enemy hit, dealing damage and stunning them. The stun lasts longer the further they are away. Now, I don't know that they actually get stunned for longer the further they are away because it doesn't seem to actually make a difference how far away they are. Uh, I think this is just the way that Crystal Arrow or Enchanted Crystal Arrow is programmed into League of Legends, and that's why that is there. Then all allies. So okay, typically items you would see on Ashe are Spear of Sojin, Ginsu Rageblade, Hand of Justice, Hurricane, and Bramble Vest. And I'll go into more of that in a second. So let's go through the items. So Dark Star would be a great item on her because then you can run her, Jhin, and one more Dark Star, and you have the tier 1 Dark Star passive, which is great if you are running, say, a 4 Celestial, 3 Dark Star build. Protector would be fine on her because then you could go, say, Jarvan. You go Jarvan, and then Rakan Xin out and she's your fourth protector, and then you're not running any failed synergies. But ultimately, I would say protector is probably a little bit better on somebody who spams abilities and has more health, but it would be a fine option on her. Infiltrator, I would stay away from that for the most part. It's not that it's not a great buff for her, it's more that she is not typically in an infiltrator build, right? So it'd be kind of a wasted item for most cases because you're going to have to force an infiltrator in there just to give her the 50% attack speed. That said, the 50% attack speed is the equivalent of 3 bows, so it's really up to you. Now, Star Guardian, I'm going to say pass on that. One, because the Star Guardian buff just doesn't give enough mana, and she has a large mana pool, and you're wasting a tier. Demolitionist, she already has a stun, so there's no reason to make her a Demolitionist. Blade Master is very strong on her, especially if you run, say, Blade Master build. Rebel would be pretty good on her. The problem with running her as a Rebel is that Rebels don't. Well, one, the Rebel bonus is based on them being cluttered, and two, there's not another sniper in Rebel. Celestial, she's already a Celestial, so you wouldn't put that item on her. It actually wouldn't work. Red buff is a very strong item on her, as it does reduce healing, gives her a little bit of tankiness, and a little bit of damage. If you have just these two items and you have an Ashe carry and you have two other items, sure, why not throw a red buff on her for defense? Typically with carries, you're trying to look for 2 offensive items and 1 defensive item, or 3 offensive items. So a red buff, it does serve the role as kind of a bruiser type item. So it is pretty good in terms of, say, your defensive item, because you're not giving up offense for defense. Morello, on the other hand, she doesn't cast enough, in my opinion, for Morello to be great, but it would be a good third item because it does increase her spell damage and does give her a little bit of extra health. and she is still an AoE in terms of her ultimate, which is area of effect, and that makes it so that the Morello's is dealing the heal cut to an area rather than somebody who is single target. Warmogs, the wearer regenerates 4% of missing health. Uh, Probably not worth it in her case. She just doesn't have enough health to support it. Static Shiv is pretty good because it gives you mana and attack speed, but I wouldn't. I'd say there's better items for the tier and better attack speed items. Ionic Spark, I would put it on somebody other than Ashe because it only affects units 2 hexes away, and as a sniper, you're not trying to be within 2 hexes anyways. So you're just going to get more effect out of a melee user with having an Ionic Spark. Hextech Gunblade is great on her because when she ults, or when she uses her ability, she will heal for 25% of that damage per unit. So let's say you hit 4 units, that's essentially getting healing for 100% of the damage dealt, but the damage dealt to 1. So it's a very strong item because she has area of effect and she hits relatively hard, AP and AD. Though I personally would rather use a BF sword on a Sojin for her. So, Giant Slayer, great item. Again, attack speed, damage, can't really go wrong. The only problem here is that it does 12% of current health, not max health, as physical damage. So, one, it's being reduced by. Sorry. Okay. So, one, it's being reduced by armor, and two, it's current health, not max health. So, as the champions get lower, it does less and less damage. Yeah, and that's ultimately why. She is attacking tanks a lot of the time to start the fight, so this could be a good item on her, but ultimately it fails because you're using a sword. Bloodthirster, on the other hand, is not actually very good on her because you're healing for 35% of her attack damage, whereas this one you're healing for 25% of all damage. And since Ashe is a uh, more of a ultimate based champion, the Hextech is going to be better than the Bloodthirster if you have the option. Force of Nature, you typically aren't going to throw that on her. Typically, you're throwing this on a useless unit, and it's probably somebody like a Cybernetic that just needs an item. Zephyr can be really good on her because people like to position their Blitzcrank to pull from that corner, and you can take that unit out of combat, increasing CC, and ultimately Ashe's primary job in a team comp is to CC or crowd control or stun the enemies so that the allies have the chance to get going. And this banishing for 5 seconds is essentially another 5-second CC for Ashe, which, great. But at the end of the day, Giant's Belt and Negatron are probably going to be used on your tank, so it's hard to justify putting a Zephyr on her, but it is a great item. Trapclaw, same concept. It can protect from some ability that would have killed her, and then again, she's stunning them. So it's a great item for her. It also gives her a little bit of dodge chance, which would be great for defensive item. Zeke's not really strong on her because you want allies within 2 spaces. So you're not really putting Ashe in the center of the fight. You're usually putting her in one of the corners to take advantage of the sniper. So Zeke's just doesn't make sense on her. And again, you're using a sword. There's just better items. Azizi Rot, you typically aren't going to use these items to make Azizi Rot, but if the case does come up, it's at least attack speed, right? It also gives you a 2,000 health minion, could maybe win you a fight. Overall, I'm not very sold on this idea. Titan's Resolve, on the other hand, you get stacking 2% damage for every time that you, or whether you take or receive a critical hit. So if you were to run this with like an Infinity Edge and a Last Whisper, this could give you a lot of crits, which gives you armor, magic resist, and 100% damage bonus. Could be a pretty good build. I think that is more of a worst case scenario, but it's still not. I wouldn't say that you're trolling by running this item. Swordbreaker is pretty good. 25% chance to disarm the target for 3 seconds. Again, Ashe's main role in the team is to crowd control. If you happen to have these two items left over and you can't put it on anybody else, Ashe is a pretty good user for a Swordbreaker. Typically, you're putting attack speed on her, so this 25% is more likely to go off. Okay, so Thieves' Gloves. Again, it's pretty good. Crit chance, dodge, and 2 random items. She's typically good with any item, but there are the rare occasions where you get like redemption and say Zeke's, and then you're putting your Ashe in a weird spot. Thieves' Gloves, I would say, is better for somebody else, but if you have 2 gloves and you don't want to make her a carry, this will put her as kind of a side carry. Seraph's Embrace, pretty good. She has 150 mana. She starts with, I believe, 75, which means that she will get the first ult off. However, the 2 tiers is just better for Spear of Sojin. Spear of Sojin, after her first cast, each attack gives her 18% of max mana per attack. This says 15%, but it has been recently buffed to 18%. So that allows her to reload her ultimate faster, which means that more ultimates, and this is one of the best ultimates in the game. Redemption heals the entire team for 800 health on death. If your Ashe is dying first, you have her positioned incorrectly. This is just better on another unit. The only advantage is, of course, you do get the tier. Hurricane attacks 1 additional unit on attack, dealing 70% damage, which is great because you have the sniper bonus, and typically you're running Spear of Sojin. It applies on hits, so it's essentially a Hurricane plus a Spear of Sojin equals you have 2 Spear of Sojins, which is pretty strong, extremely strong. Okay, Rapid Fire Cannon. She's already got really long range. There's no real reason to put double that range. She already can reach backline units, I believe. If not, she's like 1 hex away. So the wearer is immune to crowd control. This is great again for protecting against hooks or other crowd control that might hit you at the start of the fight. Ashe is one of your main carries typically, so this would be a thought item for her. Rabadon's, in my opinion, is a sleeper item on her. If you get a tier 3 Ashe, she does 700 damage. You're increasing that by 40 for the, so let's take our calculator. So 700 times 0.4, 280 plus 700. So just on the 2 rods, she's getting 980 damage. And then you take that number and times it by 0.5. So plus 980, 1500 damage ult. Pretty strong. So it's a sleeper item on her. If you happen to have 2 rods that aren't on, say, another mage, that would be a strong candidate for her. Last Whisper. Again, this is a great item for her because she's often attacking tanks to start the fight. If she hits a critical strike, she reduces their armor by 90%. The effect does not stack, but like I said, it's great for, say, mech pilots where they have a Garen that's being a pain in the butt. Knock down his armor, your team kills it off, then we can get on with the fight. So, Locket of Iron Solari, again, same as Zeke's, just not worth it because you don't want to put her within 2 hexes typically of other champions. And if you are, you're definitely not going to have 5 champions near her. Luden's Echo, it's pretty strong. These 2 items can be used for, say, Rageblade and Sojin. So, but if you already have your Rageblade and Sojin, I would say Luden's is fine. You're essentially adding 160 damage to her ultimate to 3 targets. It's pretty good. Spell crit, I think, is troll. I've already explained this in the items video, so just don't bother with it on Ashe. When combat starts, so Shroud of Stillness is not very effective on her because usually she's in a corner and you're trying to isolate her, and these two items just don't work well for her. Typically, you want to put this on somebody who's a little bit closer to the middle of the fight. Infinity Edge, increasing critical strike damage by 100%. Uh, I've seen it. It's fine. If you were to run Infinity Edge plus Last Whisper, you're increasing your crit chance. Fine, right? If you are running that, then you would definitely want Hand of Justice as your third item because you're definitely going for more of a damage-oriented Ashe. I think she does plenty of damage with just Sojin, Hurricane, and maybe a Ginsu or a Rabadon's or something. Um, but if you really think she needs the crit damage and you don't want to put these items on Jin or Caitlyn, fine. Chalice, she doesn't cast enough to make it worth it, and she's too far from allies. Guardian Angel is a fine defensive item. Nothing really more to say about that. Sometimes she'll get sniped by some of these infiltrators or a Syndra, and then you're out your carry. Guardian Angel revives her for 400 health, and she loses aggro, which means that she's no longer attacked by the target. Ginsu Rageblade, better with Chrono. So if you are running the more Caitlyn based, like 4 Chrono, 4 Celestial, definitely a Rageblade. If you're not running that, then I think that a Hurricane and a Rabadon's is better use for these items. Deathblade, you get 15 attack damage per stack. When she ults, she gets an assist. So let's say she automatically gets 2 people to half life, or let's say she hits a 3-man ult. She gets 3 people to half life, they die. That's 45 extra attack damage. You're never going to scoff at that, so I would say this item is definitely a great third item. But ultimately, she, when it comes down to it, she does better with attack speed based items. So Deathblade is definitely more of a third item, but still a great item. Dragonclaw, better on a tank. Just ultimately, you're not trying to get her to take damage. You're trying to position her better so she doesn't take damage. This is just better on a tank. Frozen Heart can slow infiltrators. If you have to throw it on her, fine. But again, you're probably better off putting this on, say, a mid-range unit, like, say, an Ezreal or whoever is in that mid-range for your build, because it affects units within 2 hexes. So again, since she's off kind of on her own island and she doesn't move too often, Frozen Heart's not that great. And last one, Bramble Vest, which negates bonus damage from critical strikes. When hit, she deals damage to an area. Now, you're going to lose the damage in the area because you're typically not in melee range with her, but being able to reduce crits or not be able to be crit by, say, a Shaco build or a Jin build can save your life. So Bramble Vest, great option for defense for her. So let's go back to Ashe, kind of go over what her scaling looks like and if she's worth 3-starring. So tier 1 Ashe, 600 health, 250 damage on 1.5 seconds stun, 60 damage. So you're, by leveling her, you're going up to, by 48 damage, you're going up by 480 health and an extra 100 damage in an area and 2 seconds stun. So since her primary role is to CC, that extra 0.5 seconds can make or break a fight. Then again, level 3, she gets not almost 900 health. She gets almost 90 extra damage, and she gets a almost double the damage in ultimate. And of course, she goes up by 0.5 seconds again. So, in conclusion, she would be a great 3-star focus if you're like trying to focus on who should I 3-star in my comp. Ashe is a great choice. She does more damage, more health, longer CC, and again, her racials lead her to believe, or lead her to be in your comp most of the time when you have her. Like, you're not trying to get rid of Ashe. Spear of Sojin, Gensu Rageblade, Hurricane would be my recommended uh, build for her in most cases. If you cannot get a Gensu after a Hurricane, go for something like a Hand of Justice, a Trap Claw, a Quicksilver Sash, or a Bramble Vest for your defensive item, or even a Rabadon's. God Sword is fine on her, but again, uh, she does better with attack speed based items. And a perfect build would typically include a third attack speed item. All right, well, that concludes our champion spotlight for Ashe in TFT. Uh, if you want to know where to put her, I can do that. Let's go ahead and go to the team builder. Typically, a comp with Ashe would look something like this. Ashe, then you go Ezreal. Where is he? Okay, you go Thresh, Shen, and Wukong. Then you're going Xin Rakan. So that gives us 4 Chrono, 2 Snipers, 2 Protector, 4 Celestial. Now that we have this Mana Reaver, we are going to throw in Kassadin, as mentioned before. And that's going to give us 4 Celestial, 2 Mana Reaver, 2 Protector, 4 Chrono, and 2 Snipers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-man comp, which allows you to be able to throw in a Vanguard or a Blade Master. Again, if you were to, say, add her into the mix as a Blade Master, so let's say you were turning her into a Blade Master, you have a Spear of Sojin, and you have a Hurricane. Let's see, where's Hurricane? Then she's now your carry. You can put her here. You could also go the route of, say, Aurelia. So if, say, you really didn't want to run Thresh and you were fine with the Blitzcrank, then you would put Blitz on this side to avoid hooks. Even though she loses a little bit of damage, it's better to protect her from hooks or other things that can hit these outside 2 units. Caitlyn's expendable, and you would throw Aurelia in for a... So let's see, Aurelia. So that gives you 3 Blade Master, 2 Snipers, 4 Chrono, 2 Protector, 4 Mana Reaver, and 4 Celestial. Again, this hinges on the fact that you do get a Blade of Rune King for your Ashe and have the open slot. But let me know what you think about Ashe. Hopefully this helps you win more games, and I will see you guys on the next Champion Spotlight. I believe that's going to be Shen. All right, thank you, and have a great day.